Welcome back to Do Yourself a Favour. I am so happy. I am sitting in my friend's apartment in Sydney, and my friend is Jess Burvill. Hello.
Hi, Tam. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's so nice to have you here. Jess and I have been friends for a long time, but I suppose these days the way people might know you is because of your very useful, successful Instagram page called Daily Serve of Nutrition. How good is that thing, man? Like I'm really such an oldie in terms of how I get on board with things. And so I was very late to the Daily Serve of Nutrition party. And then I got on there and I was like, what the hell is this? This is so useful, so well done. And that's why it's been so successful, surely. Like, useful, practical. Also, there's something you say on it, like, is it no nonsense or no judgy or something like that?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact term I use, but kind of like it's like no straight up, no BS.
Yeah, no BS. And you even have posts like, I loved the one where you said something like, what's the calories? What was it for, Christmas or Easter? And you go, what's the calories? And it was DNC, do not care.
Yeah, I don't care. IDC was all the different foods that you could eat at Christmas time. I'm like, who cares how many calories it is?
There's a real perfect balancing in that, because you've got all the expertise, all the understanding. You really help with very useful, practical ways. What can I eat? And then it comes to Easter and I go, oh no, what will Jess think? And you go, I don't care. And I go, yeah, hot cross buns. So cool.
Thank you, Tam. That's very kind.
Oh, it's not kind, it's true. And I mean, do you know how many followers you're up to as we speak?
As of today, what's the date today? It's the 8th of May.
8th of May.
We're at 171,000.
Come on. Oh, I hope you're, as we've talked about before, I hope you're very proud.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's still kind of all a bit new. The whole thing happened. I mean, the acceleration was quite rapid from when I started out only about 18 months ago to now. So still kind of getting my head around it. And I guess the bigger it gets, you go, well, what's next? Where can it go? So yeah, no, it's great. And I'm, a lot of change, a lot of things happening. So I'm just kind of, riding the wave at the moment, I guess.
Yeah, how cool. So we'll talk more about, with that rapid growth, there will be things that you've cleverly done. And I think I mentioned in one of my podcasts, we were talking about people wanting to look good on Instagram, right? And it's something that you and I will talk about today, what's real and what's not. But I said, sometimes an Instagram page is popular just because it's so good. And that's like your one, right? Like for mums, for people trying to be healthy, busy people going, what do I buy at Coles? Genius. But we'll come back to that, because what I want to do is go back a little bit in time. You and I have known each other for a long time, but you being in nutrition, being a dietitian, it's actually not been that many years, has it, since you've been in this world?
No, I've only been a dietitian since I graduated about 4 years now. So yeah, it's kind of my second career.
Yeah, your second
career.
My
second coming.
Yeah, your second coming. And of course that makes me go in a rude direction, but we won't go there. We've known each other a long time. Now I thought of pilo erection, so let's keep
bring it back.
Keep on track. So you graduated 4 years ago, but that means that you studied for a number of years before that. Is that right? How long did your degree take you?
It took about 5 years, because I did the first 2 years part-time while I was still working full-time. So that was a challenge in itself. And then around the time of COVID, when all the shutdowns and lockdowns happened, that's when I made the move to studying full-time.
Got it. So you said it was your second coming. That's right. And prior to that, when I think of your career, you've always had a very successful career. Would you describe the initial career as a marketing career?
Probably more advertising. Yeah, so definitely there's an aspect of marketing to it, but I worked in advertising agencies. So it was about ideas, about selling ad campaigns, TV, because this is going back in the day now when TV advertising was the main thing.
Yeah.
We used to do magazine advertising, radio, TV, so traditional advertising.
Your success around Instagram particularly, do you think, because I think life is wonderful when you're brave enough like you've been to go with your heart, and we'll talk about how this world of nutrition had always been your heart actually. Do you think the skills that you learnt through all those years of being in that other world had you make good branding decisions, good visual decisions, good graphic decisions that helped. Do you think that side helped the growth, or just the usefulness of the material?
Yeah, I think it has helped. I mean, probably in a bit of a subconscious way, because when I think back to when I worked in advertising, we were trying to sell ideas at the end of the day.
Yes.
So a client would come to you with a brief. We want you to help us sell this product, and we would have to come up with creative ideas to sell that product. And often it meant, when you're describing a product or a service or whatever it is we were selling, you want to do it in a way that's really simple to understand.
Yes.
And it's attractive to look at, and it's engaging, and maybe it's entertaining, or it's sad, or whatever it is. So you have to think about, how can I connect with the audience? Who is my audience? What message is going to resonate with them? How do I deliver this message in a way that's going to be compelling and it's going to work? And I think that's kind of the approach I take to nutrition. So I'm essentially trying to sell you nutrition. I'm trying to help deliver a message about, how to eat healthily, or whatever it is I'm talking about, in a way that's going to cut through. And because now the world is social media, it's not TV or press anymore. It is a different beast, but the same principles, I think, still apply. So yeah, and the other thing I think I do carry through to my content, because I'm very particular about how it looks. I do like it to look nice, and that's not necessarily essential anymore. Being authentic and all that kind of thing can work too. But when I think back to, we would go along to meetings with clients and things like that to pitch our ideas, and everything always looked beautiful. We had a deck, or we had things on boards, and the art director would design everything, and it would all be perfectly polished, and everything had to look beautiful before we went to the meeting. And that's just what agencies did. We were all about how it looked and how it came across, and making sure that the message was packed up in a way the client could then buy it as well. So I think those kind of lessons and approach is something I still take through to my work.
Yeah, I think now that you've described that, I think it is very clearly come through, and I think your commitment to a great product. There is, one of the things, there's a lot that I've learnt from you in this journey that you've been on, but one of the things I think, with the level of quality of the branding and the styling and the humanity, as you were talking, I was trying not to laugh, because what popped into my mind was your post about look at moi, and it was the red capsicum. So it's such a lovely balance, because you do these, the branding is not the right word. What do you call it when it looks beautiful on the screen? Layout, styling?
Design.
Okay. So your design looks awesome, right? And then you have posts like look at me, and what I'm referring to is one where you helped us understand the vitamin C in a red capsicum versus an orange, but because you did it with look at me, Kath and Kim.
Kath and Kim.
Right,
Yeah.
Kath and Kim. So it not only, I remember it, one, because people learn best when they're having a good time, and particularly when they're laughing. We know from the data. So that particular post I'll never forget, because the red capsicum was saying look at me. So then you've got that funny side, but then the way the design is, I think all the things you said, it cuts through any noise, it allows you to read it clearly, it doesn't take the person looking, takes their own energy. I actually think it's a very clever way, and it's probably part of the reason you've had so much success. But the other thing is, it feels very respectful to the person reading it. Like, I understand the authentic, I've done a lot of that, and there's a place for it. But your passion and your mission is, like you said, to have people have good nutrition that they can have without a lot of pain. So if your good branding, good design, level of effort cuts through the noise, which it has, it's all worth it, right?
I think that there's also try to do no judgment as well. I'm, very mindful that, everyone's coming from things in a different way, or from a different place, and it's not about judging anybody or telling anybody this is right or this is wrong. And because there's a lot of negativity on social media, the algorithm loves negativity, it loves fear-mongering, and I try to steer clear of that, because I don't like looking at that stuff. It's very triggering. And so hopefully what I'm able to offer people is, something that's a little bit more lighthearted. Don't want to make anyone feel silly for not understanding something. And no judgment at the end of the day. And I kind of know, as a busy person myself, you just try to take a realistic approach to nutrition, and there's no right or wrong way about it. You can there's lots of different ways to eat healthily.
Well, I think it actually says a lot that you have succeeded in the lack of judgment, because as an area of weakness for me forever, when I talk to you about nutrition as friends or whether I read your content, I actually never feel judged. I just can add something to my toolkit, and often I'm just quite happy to do that. So you'll say, if you put, was it lentils and broccoli? Because that really upped my lentil soup game. I think it's not a test.
The vitamin C will unlock the iron in the
I was like, oh my God, I can add broccoli to my chorizo and lentil soup. I can't imagine chorizo is very good, only little. But yeah, I was like, it's actually, you make it fun. But what I wanted to say about the outcome for the client, us being the client, who are the followers or the people that see your posts, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was this idea of what has it actually taken from the time, or might even be while you were studying. So you start where you want, either when you were studying or post it. When you and I spoke about it, I couldn't believe just how hard you had worked, number one, how long you had worked that hard, the kind of jobs you were doing, and then having the success you've had, that still takes a time to convert into not having to do these other things to survive, right?
Correct.
So tell me where you want to start. Shall we go back to uni? Was there difficulties you had to challenge from the get-go? Even making the decision to change careers, you must have had feedback like, hang on,
you're crazy.
You're crazy.
Yeah. No, I guess if we started back at the point where I was in my career, I was working in corporate, if I'm being honest, I was bored. Okay. I'd kind of got to a point where I was like, I'm selling something I don't care about anymore. And I think when you start to feel like that about what you do, you don't have the passion. You can't work in a creative industry like marketing or advertising anymore. You have to genuinely feel passionate about it. And I think I was at that point where I was like, I can go either way here. I can continue being comfortable in this job, very well paid job, wasn't particularly stressful, could just continue down that path. But I had this kind of niggling thing in the background about the dietitian thing, and I'd actually explored it maybe 5 or 6 years earlier when I was living in London. I looked into the universities in London and worked out, could I go to uni there? Could I study, dietetics there? And it was cost prohibitive. I couldn't do it.
Okay.
And then so when I was back here, I looked into it. I looked at all the different universities, and I found University of Wollongong had a part-time option, and I kind of had to look into what days the courses were available and how much it was going to cost. And I was like, I can probably do this one day a week. And I spoke to my boss at the time, who agreed to let me basically take unpaid leave every Friday. And I went down to uni, and I just kind of rolled with it. I thought, let's see how this goes. And yeah, I guess I did that for the first 2 years, and it was hard. Like, it meant essentially every night, I'd finish work at 5 o'clock and everyone would go home, and I would stay there, and I would stay at work till 9:30 at night, watching lectures, watching all the online material, doing the tutorials. Then every weekend you're doing assignments and studying for exams. It's a lot of work. Anyone who's been to uni knows it's a lot of work.
Yes.
I think I took it a lot more seriously the second time around. I remember when we were back in the day, right? We were just like there to party and
got my bachelor in pub.
What's that saying? Even C's get degrees or something like that.
Like that.
You don't really care what marks you get. So yeah. Anyway, it was a bit different this time around. I was like, I have to do really well. So I did put a lot of effort into my study. So that was hard. So giving up social time, I think, was the main, consideration at that point, the impact on your free time. I was still, working and studying and all that kind of thing. So that was the main impact. And then I guess when I eventually stopped working full-time and became a full-time student, it was then about, well, I still need to earn money. So what kind of work am I going to do that fits around a full-time uni schedule? So, the schedule was kind of like 8 till 5 a lot of the time, so you couldn't work during the day.
Are we going to the University of Wollongong in person or online?
Well, this was kind of COVID time as well, so there was almost this magical twist of fate, which meant that for a good probably 2 years of my degree, I didn't have to go to uni. It was amazing, right?
Oh yeah,
it was so good
because the drive alone.
Exactly, it was like 2 hour drive each way.
I was going to say.
So I was able to study remotely and do everything online, which was great because that saved a heap of time. And that was around that time I was like, I still need to work because I still need to pay rent and things. And so, yeah, I was working at one point, I think 3 or 4 different part-time jobs. My most memorable one would be the stacking shelves at Woolies job, which actually, even though, not a high point of my career, it actually did have an influence on where I am today because I was in the supermarket, I was looking at the products, and it ended up becoming the topic of my thesis, because I was in the supermarket looking at all these promotions and I was going, listening to Woolies play this song over the radio and like, we make the healthy choice, the easy choice, and all the messages about, it was during COVID and, all that kind of stuff. And then we were literally building these promotions of, chips and Coke that are like half price. And you're going, okay, so how are you making it the healthy choice when all the products on sale are like, junk food?
True.
So this just kind of got me thinking about the role supermarkets played in nutrition, and that was kind of I'm kind of segueing a little bit here, but that was kind of what ended up guiding my final thesis. So,
were you reading labels while you were stacking shelves? Like, were you already at the point where you're like, what's the sodium?
Probably. I do remember taking photos of a few products.
And was Barbara, your supervisor, going, Jess, let's speed up the cans, hey?
No, one of the good things about that job was you kind of just got to do it in your own time. You rocked up, you got this big cage full of products, and I often worked on the chip aisle, so I was, because the boxes are light, so they give the girls the light boxes.
Nice.
So I'd go and do the chip aisle, and I couldn't believe how many packets of chips the Woolies would sell every day. But anyway, that's another story. So yeah,
it's often on the half price aisle.
Half price aisle, exactly.
Because I never buy chips, and then they're often on the half price aisle. I go, well, today's the day.
Today's the day. Let's get to.
Let's do it Friday night.
Exactly, Friday night treat. So yeah, I think I'd kind of started doing a little bit of social media then, but it was really dabbling because there was no time to do social media when I was at uni. So yeah, I'd take a few photos and things like that, and collecting material for my research. So yeah, that was one of my jobs, and then I was also working at a local hospital. I was working in the kitchen at the hospital, delivering meals and washing up dishes and preparing food. And I did that because I thought I wanted to work in a hospital, and I thought I'll get a job in a hospital because that will help me get a job when I graduate.
Got it.
Hospital experience.
Clever.
Yeah.
So you were thinking the whole time, I need to do work I can do while I'm busy with uni, but I'll also get work that could connect to a future opportunity.
Correct. And I think I even thought that about Woolies. I thought that working in a supermarket might be useful one day, and it turned out that it was. Not that it got me a job there, but it's still been
devastating.
Useful.
But I'd like to apologise, Woolworths. What I was going to say was, so you said, I'm going to have a dabble with this degree. I think it's what I want to do. You start part-time, you're still in your advertising world, good boss giving you the unpaid leave. You continue, you then go full-time with COVID, and you've got these jobs. By the sounds of it, the passion was clear. How soon into the second attempt at coming into this world did you go, this is my thing, man? Was it when you were part-time? Was it as soon as you walked into the uni? Was it as soon as you had your first lecture? Or did it take time to take hold?
No, I really enjoyed it right from the get-go because I think I never studied science when I did my first degree. I never really did much science at school. I always did I did economics and I did literature. I never did any biology or things like that. And I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed learning something new. And I think because I was bored in general in my life, I was like, this is something new to do, and I worked out that I was quite good at it. And because I was good at it, and the thing I like about being a student is that you're getting constant feedback. You get this positive reinforcement of your effort because you get marks back.
Yes.
And because I am that type of person, I really, I guess, thrived on the feedback loop. I would work hard, I would get something in return for it. And so that kind of becomes a bit of a motivating factor.
Yes.
So yeah, I kind of just developed a bit of a, I guess, sense of pride about wanting to perform and do well. There's a lot of A-type personalities who become dietitians. We're that kind of person.
Yes.
So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, what drove me. And I think, once you're kind of in it, I was like, well, I've started now, I have to finish this. So yeah, I just kind of kept rolling with it. And I think I enjoyed all parts of the study apart from statistics.
I've heard of these things. And they sound horrific unless
you never really use it.
Oh, you don't?
Well, I guess it helps to understand research papers. But
okay.
Yeah, and then there's the really complex chemistry as well, biochemistry, which, you learn all these things and you kind of don't really use it day to day. But I understand why we have to go through it.
So you're doing this thing, you're going, right, I'm going to do it really well. You do it really well. Are you happy to say what award you won as a part of your uni, or do you feel too shy to say what you won?
Oh, you're talking about the Dean Scholar thing?
Yes, which I like to call the James Beard Award.
Look, that was just a thing at the end of second year, third year, before we start the final year. The top academic students, I think it was the top 10 or top 15 students, we were invited to the Dean's Scholar part of the course, which basically just meant we got to do a bigger research project. We had to do more work, essentially.
Yes, that was your reward.
That was our reward. You get to do more work. So we were all given a bigger research project to do compared to what everybody else had to do. They kind of had to do a separate unit, I think. And that was kind of where that idea for doing my research about Woolworths or about supermarkets in general came from.
So what was the name of your thesis?
Look, the topic was about how Australian supermarkets use their marketing communications to help Australians make healthier and or more sustainable food choices. Because at the time when we were studying, there was a big emphasis on environmentally sustainable food choices and food systems.
Yeah.
And that was a message that at the time, when I was talking about Woolworths playing all that messages,
yes,
there was a lot of emphasis on sort of the green choices, and we're cutting down on packaging and food miles and things like that. We're still seeing that now, but at that time it was a very prominent message. And so I was interested in, okay, well, if that's the case, how are you using your marketing communications? And by that, I mean things like everything from in-store promotion to their website, their social media, their catalogues. Are the messages and information they're putting out there, does that reinforce this supposed, idea that we want to help you make the healthier or more sustainable food choices? That's what I looked at.
So one of the things that I probably have noticed more than anything in your journey is just how hard you have been willing to work. And what I've made up about it is probably two things. I think it comes from really just a passion for what you believe in and wanting to make a difference to people in that way. And then the other part might be, and you might correct me, but when you said type A personality, I thought, are you naturally a driven person, and are those things coming together? If they are coming together, what percentage would you put in each? And if it is pure passion, that's a pretty happy driver, but it'd be unusual if it's just pure passion, right? How do you feel?
Yeah, look, I think you're right in that it's a mix, because one of the reasons, why many people become a dietitian or many people work in health is they want to help people.
Yes.
At the end of the day, we want to help people to be healthier, whether you work as a physio or a psychologist or a social worker or a dietitian. We're all doing it because we want to help people make healthier food choices, because that's what we're doing at the end of the day.
Yes.
So there's definitely an aspect of that. And I think what drew me to the social media was it's a platform for you to be able to have far greater influence potentially than seeing clients one-on-one. You might see, if you're working in a clinic, for example, you might see, if you're busy, 6 or 7 people a day, and you're only ever talking to the person one-on-one.
Yes.
Whereas in social media, obviously depending on the size of your following and your platform,
yes,
you can potentially reach a very large number of people. So you can have great influence. And I think in a time when we are seeing an incredible amount of misinformation, and anyone can get on there and say anything they want about food and nutrition and health, a lot of quite damaging and information, and it's really confusing people. I think it is really important that people who are qualified are on these platforms, putting evidence-based information out there. So there's definitely that is part of it.
Yes.
I think as type A people, we like to be correct. We like to be, focused on facts. So there's an opportunity to do that. There's the creative aspect as well, because it's social media. You can deliver that message however you want. So you've got a creative component too.
Yes.
And I really enjoy that. And then I think the other part, because I kind of almost just realised this as I was talking about before, the thing I liked about being a student was that positive reinforcement.
Yes.
Social media gives that to you as well, right?
Yes.
In likes and engagement.
Yes.
So you put something out there and you get immediate feedback.
Yeah, because human beings do very well with feedback. So the opportunity to talk with you was connected to some training I was doing in Orange. And one of the things we talked about in Orange was a Gallup poll done many, many years ago now, and it talked about people being actively engaged at work or disengaged. And the thing that always surprises people is that if you look at the 3 categories, got only positive feedback, got only constructive, so not your shit, but useful constructive, or nothing, what percentage were actively engaged? The gap between constructive and nothing, people that got no feedback, 2% of them were actively engaged.
Yeah.
But 30 plus were actively engaged with constructive feedback, because as human beings, if we don't hear anything, our minds are naturally negative because of our limbic system and, fight, flight, freeze response, even though it's not life and death, it feels like it to our ego. And also we don't know which direction to go because we're not hearing anything, so we can get quite lost. So it makes a lot of sense to me why uni worked in that way. You'd work hard and get a result. And then with what you've been doing, you work hard and get a result. And that's satisfying, right? And also allows you to keep guiding. Did that post work? Could I take a different angle? What worked for people? What was most useful? With your passion running the show, you want it to be the most useful. Totally makes sense that it's a better platform than one-on-one, because it is such a sluggish, for want of a better word, way to work. One of the things I really want us to talk about to allow people into the reality of what it takes is, like you said, there is a huge amount on social media and everyone posts whatever the hell they want, and people really make out, and there's of course a lot of BS, right? Like, as human beings, we BS a lot about that everything's awesome. So you see a lot of posts, any platform, or even in social conversations, one-on-one, there's just a lot of BS, the forever home, the perfect husband, everyone's dressed in white, everyone's got a filter on, it's so wonderful. When it's always, I don't know if you've ever had this, but you read something on social media and you happen to be friends with the person or know the person, and you go,
they're not like that.
They're like, it's a shit show. What was that post about? It's very helpful to realise. But, the thing that I think is very useful for people, because people will be watching this, there'll be different people watching this, ones that are really just interested in who is the woman behind this thing, but also what I think is so useful for people, and also as an acknowledgement of yourself, of just how hard you've worked to get this thing where it's up to. And what I'd love to talk about is what have been the highs and lows for you. The podcast used to be called 50-50. I love talking about successes and failures and how failures lead to success. What does your average week look like at the moment, and what has it looked like over what length of time to get to this 171,000 followers?
Yeah, look, great question. If I go back to when I was working multiple jobs and doing the social media on the side, it would kind of look like, come home at night time, get on the Canva, creating content. And look, I'm not a fast content creator. There are people out there who can churn out a lot of content. And for me, I'm a bit slow because I'm very particular. So it might take me hours. I might, there are many days where I go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd literally be staying up late working on content. You're always thinking about ideas, things like that. So then you're getting up, going to work, and you're tired. And, so there's just an element of, there was a definite grind going on in the background. And I think I've gradually, one by one, stopped working at each of my jobs.
Okay.
So there's less jobs happening now. So I have more time available to work on content. But the days are a bit different now. I've got more time to create content, but there's now more pressure. Back then,
yes,
no pressure. When you've got 5,000 followers to do whatever you want, you don't care about it as much.
Yes.
When you've got a big following, you have to really think about what you're putting out there, because you can't just put anything out there, because people do actually listen to what you say.
So you've got an expectation from the audience, and from you just saying that, it sounded like there was two elements. The biggest one is your responsibility to your followers, that your passion is them learning, but also it sounds like connected to that, there's, if you make some sort of big mistake, there's a bigger consequence for your brand. Would that be true as well?
Yeah.
Or is it purely the passion part? Like, I want to get this right for my followers.
No, look, it's both. You've got that sort of performance anxiety of, you want your content to perform well. So when you put something up and it bombs, you go, oh my God. And you can take it quite personally. And that's one of the downsides of, working, doing a lot of social media content, is that your emotions can be guided by things like how well your content performs. And sometimes you just need to separate your emotions a little bit and just go, well, whatever, let's move on and learn from it. And that's fine. But as a health professional, like, I'm an accredited practicing dietitian, so we have a code of conduct that we have to comply with, right? So I can't just go on and say whatever I want, or, put out information that's factually incorrect. I need to fact check everything I put out there. I need to research it. I need to say it in a way that's not judgmental, or dietitians do things in a certain way, and that can be frustrating sometimes because we can't necessarily put out those messages that other people are doing where they're walking in the supermarket and going, this is poisoning you, or this is whatever, because you just can't, that's not responsible, right? You can't do that, and it's not true anyway.
But I was going to say, even if you weren't a dietitian, I get that you've got the guidelines, but your care about this subject, you're never going to do clickbait bullshit material, right?
No, but at the same time, I also don't want to do the boring approach of just the way I see it done a lot of the time. I'm trying to make it interesting for people. I try to focus on food rather than nutrition. Yes. I'll weave the nutrition message in, but people eat food, right? And people are interested in food. And I think I've worked that out, through different types of content. When I kind of stumbled upon looking at the supermarket food, because at one of my jobs, that's what I was doing. I was writing about supermarket food. So I became really interested in it. And because everyone shops, everyone goes to the supermarket, and, a lot of people are interested in groceries. Which is weird, but we are.
Of course. Well, it's part of everyday.
It is part of everyday life.
And I've learned so much from you. And one of the most devastating things I learned, it was a life ruiner, it's not your fault, is that veggie chips are still chips. I think I even put a comment, Devo, Jess, but thanks. Because I was rationalising eating them, buying for Sam, my 11-year-old. I was like, well, if it's just a dehydrated broccoli, right? Let's eat it. And then you were like, I've got some news for you.
It's just another type of chip.
It's just another type of chip. I could have been banging in the salt and vinegars for the same.
Exactly. You might as well have the one that you like.
That's right. That's the other part I love of your message, because you say what's the good thing to do or what's the most nutritious thing to do, but you also say, listen, if you're trying to be good in these ways or be healthy in these ways. And then if you want to have a treat, don't try and get the treat right. Just have a treat. It's all right, And I think what you said about, God, it must be frustrating for you. I mean, what do they say? The best revenge is success. So I think at your size of audience, if you're dealing with a lot of people, which you don't have to comment on, but I can see it, there's a lot of BS and a lot of this is poison and do this or your children are going to die and, all the crazy. I get that it would still be very frustrating for you, but because you've got a platform that can be useful and logical and all the rest, does that die down, that noise, or is it still very frustrating when you see false content or dramatically false content?
Yeah, look, it is. And I have this terrible habit of when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I look at my phone. And invariably, one of the first posts that will appear in my feed will be something controversial. And you start the day with this, oh my God, and you're like, rage bait, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really bad habit. I'm not recommending anybody do that, but that's just part of the job, unfortunately.
Well, it's actually very good as a part of our conversation, because we want to talk about what works and doesn't. And, if it is such a big part of your life and the difference you want to make, it both makes sense that it's the first thing you want to do, but it also makes sense that it could be an unbalancing thing as you try and keep this useful but behemoth going, right? Like often I'll see one of your posts and go, oh my God, there's another post. And I'll think, does this woman ever have a break? And I think the answer might be not often.
Sometimes no, sometimes. And I have sacrificed, a lot of things like my exercise time and my socializing and things like that for content. And is that the right thing to do? Maybe I need to be working more on my balance in life, because, at the end of the day, I do promote balance and, and that's part of being healthy. So yeah, that's definitely a consideration. And going back to your question about the, sort of all the crazy out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes, because I guess when someone chooses to follow you, most of the time the people who follow me, they're fantastic. I get a lot of, great feedback from people. They're very supportive of my content.
Yes.
Lovely comments and feedback. But if you ever have a post that goes like viral,
yes,
it goes out to people that don't follow you. And that's when you start to get the other aspect. And look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but that's when you'll start to get opinions that are probably a little bit different to my way of thinking or the people I follow. And that's when you get the sort of the seed oil stuff and all that kind of just really frustrating, commentary.
Yes.
That I think is influenced by all the negativity out there in social media, all this fear around food. And that can be challenging, and I kind of have to make a decision sometimes just to either ignore it.
Yes.
Because if I do jump in. It's very tempting to get in there and get into the comments. I always regret it.
Okay.
Because it's kind of almost like one of those things where you can't really win it.
Yeah.
You either come off looking like an asshole for challenging the person.
Yes.
Or the person will be incredibly rude. I mean, some of the things people have said to me or the messages I've received, you just go, wow, would you really say that in public? Or did you just write that on my page? You know,
I know.
It's really incredible sometimes.
I find it extraordinary.
Yeah.
And often, and even the person has their real name and photo, and you go, you realise what you just wrote, and it's your real name and photo, and often it'll be so far away from what the content actually was. It's always fascinated me. I've seen you, I think you manage your comments very well. I also think you answer very cleverly. Like, I think what I've seen of you answering, very good with people that are positive, but people that aren't, you know, you're always very respectful. And I get why it can be clever. It's a little bit when I used to get very frustrated around people with, you know, what we would call conspiracy theories. And the best help I ever got was when someone believes something as a faith, facts don't make any difference.
Correct.
Wasn't that freeing, right? So you would see that all the time. You'll have the faithful of a particular person or a particular belief. You know, like Trump is an example, okay? So it's nothing to do with nutrition, obviously, but there's people that still really, really love him, and it's not based on fact. It's based on theology. It's based on faith. They have chosen him as their leader, and there's nothing of use in the factual world for that, right?
Correct. And you know, you can say things like, oh, but the evidence shows whatever. If someone believes a certain thing about food or nutrition, unfortunately, evidence is not going to change their mind.
It won't.
So it's because they've been, I guess, conditioned or influenced by someone more influential than evidence.
Yes.
And that's now what they believe, and that aligns with their persona. And because you've got that sort of, I guess, positive reinforcement in your algorithm, so everything you look at and all the people you associate with have that same viewpoint, it reinforces basically your perception. And we see that in all aspects of, you know, politics and things like that. Whoever you follow and your connections, you're in like a bit of an echo chamber. And so when someone comes, you know, in from outside your echo chamber with a different point of view, you're going to go, oh no, I don't, no, that's not right.
That's not right.
Even if there's blatant black and white evidence there, no, I don't believe that. And I do see a lot of that in nutrition.
You would, because it's for quite a long time it's sort of been this kind of a sexy influencer subject, potentially not true dietitians, but certainly nutrition, because people are worried about their looks and their health and everything else. It's been an easy one to garner interest, right? And then if the person is charismatic enough or has enough of a, I don't know.
A great body.
Great body is very helpful.
Yes.
I read this fantastic thing, and it said, yeah, thank you, 22-year-old health influencer. Let's be 55, 3 kids, perimenopause, and then tell me about the run you did this morning. And I actually thought, yeah, that's fair, man. Like, it's wonderful, but, you know, like we were laughing about with uni, you know, you could drink all night, have a kebab, and look shit hot the next day.
I never did that.
No, never. It was me. I'm so sorry. Jess is not judgmental of me, though, and my previous choices.
Exactly.
That's right.
Completely okay.
Thank you, Jess. So, what haven't we talked about? One I really want to know, right? This page gets more and more successful. There's going to be more and more opportunities for all sorts of things that will allow you more free time because they'll have greater income. Will you be able to find the balance? Because it's easy to rationalise how hard you've worked till now, but are you going to work hard until you die? Or are you going to go, awesome, that is at a sweet spot. Now I'm going to find the... What do you reckon?
That's a great question. I would really hope that I can get to a sweet spot, because I have worked incredibly hard and incredibly long hours for a number of years now, pretty much since I was at uni.
Yeah, so how many years are we up to?
8. I haven't had a holiday for 8 years.
You haven't had a holiday for 8 years. Do you have a regular full day off a week?
Nope. How
many hours sleep would you get a night?
6, maybe. Sometimes 7.
Yeah. And how often would you put a new piece of content out?
Depends. some bits of content take several days to work on. Some I can do really quickly. Like I did a post the other day. I was like literally making my dinner and I was in my freezer and I was like, I'm going to do a post about what's in my freezer, and I did that in an hour, right? So
Cool.
that was easy and that did quite well. Whereas another post, might take, might work on it for a week, and it might bomb. It might do really well. So it kind of just depends. And I am doing more work with brands at the moment. So there's a lot of brands I really love, and it's fantastic. I'm getting some opportunities to help create content for them, and that in itself is fun because it's kind of like it's a creative brief. I get an opportunity to recommend to them how do I think you should talk about your product. And it's interesting because different brands will have different approaches. Some of them will give you complete freedom, some of them have a bit more structure.
Yes.
So it's kind of working with them and guiding them and seeing what works really. So that's been interesting as well. So I'm kind of trying to prioritize that at the moment, and then looking at various other opportunities as they come up. But to be honest, I don't really know where it's going. I'm just kind of rolling with the opportunities for now, and we'll sort of see what happens.
Yeah. I think you're sort of heading towards, or probably already at a tipping point, and it shows what it's taken. It's very useful for someone who has a dream like yours to go, how much do I actually want it? What am I willing to do to get it? What effort am I willing to put in? And what is my passion? Like, is my passion that I want people to get X, Y, or Z? Or is it that I just want status? Or is it that I just want notoriety? Or I just want recognition? It's a very useful question to ask in this day and age, and with so much noise and so much drivel, let's face it, to have very good content, Let's pretend we fast forward, it's a year from now, and let's say everything you would have hoped for in this period of time from this page, from the effort you've put in, it's a year from now and it's happened. Can you imagine what that would feel like to have got to the point you would have liked to have got to for all your effort?
Yeah, I don't really know what that looks like because this has all kind of happened fairly quickly. This was never a goal. Like I never actually, when I started out, not in my wildest dream, I never thought I was going to be basically making content full time, which is now kind of what I'm doing. That was never in the plan. I thought I'd just be working as a dietitian, doing the content on the side, and it just kind of took off, I guess. So yeah, there's never been a plan. There isn't really a plan now. I'm kind of making it up as I go. There's still so many things I need to do. I haven't even got a website. You know what I mean? And there's all these other things I'd like to do.
Yes.
So I guess as long as I've still got variety, because that's one of the things I have enjoyed about my career, my short career as a dietitian so far. I've had many different jobs. I've never done a Monday to Friday. I've always had at least 2 or 3 jobs.
Yes.
And I like that because it gives you variety. So I'm hoping I can continue to do different types of work. I don't want to just be at home in my kitchen cooking and making content all the time. I want to be able to do other work as well. So I think continuing to work is important to me. But what I am hoping is that I'm working for myself and that I'm running the show and I can, have, I guess, freedom and flexibility about how I choose to spend my time, because that's the thing that I haven't had for a long time during university. Your time is taken away from you. You have just constant deadlines and pressures and things like that. So, and I've worked for people my whole life, and I think one of the things I am enjoying about this new phase is that I've got a bit more freedom over what I choose to do each day. It's really down to me, and it does require a lot of drive and, discipline to keep doing the work. And I think anyone who's producing a lot of content, maybe there's some people who do it really quickly or easily, but I think most people are working incredibly hard. I think there's a lot of people editing stuff late at night and, shooting after hours, and it's their side hustle and they're hoping to turn it into a full-time job. And, the world of media is changing. It's shifting away from media platforms, and we're getting more people who are, helping brands sell products and things like that. This is how marketing works now. So yeah, and who knows where it'll be in 5 years' time. It could be a completely different world again.
I know, isn't it so interesting? But you know what I think is so interesting from what you said, and I hear this a lot from people who've become very successful. They will often say, I never thought this thing would do anything, because I think what works about that is there's a purity around the decision to do it. So it's not about this has to be this successful for me or for my ego or whatever. It's this is what I want to do. I'll try this way, but I've got my vision. And then I think it will often be the case where you'll hear people say, oh, I never thought it would be big, because it wasn't about that. It was about doing good content, right? That alone is a very useful lesson, I think, in general in life. Like, what is the point? I'm talking, of course, as very lucky people in our world that have a choice. There's many billions of people in the world who have to work to eat and don't have the luxury of these kinds of questions. But when we do have the luxury of that, it's wonderful to go, what is the purest expression for me? Like, what is the way I want to do it?
I do like the idea of doing, sort of group education, things like that. I was asked to do a PhD when I graduated, and I was like, hard no.
Why? They sound awesome and don't take any time at all.
No.
And you would have made huge money while you were doing it.
Yeah, $30,000 a year. It's
so
amazing,
good.
Right? To work like a dog. No, thank you. I'd love to have the doctor name after, doctor's initials after my name or before my name, but just the thought makes me want to, no, thank you.
Yeah, it's clear, which is always good.
It's clear. Maybe when I'm retired, I'll do a PhD, but not now. So there's that. But I guess, you could talk about or go to different types of conferences. It doesn't need to be a nutritional dietetics conference, for example. So yeah, there's that. I do enjoy working with food industry because I think there's an opportunity to, so much focus on ultra processed foods at the moment, for example. And I think a lot of people are becoming more aware of what's in their food, and I think there's opportunities for more products that are better for you. I think there's becoming increased demand for that. It's great that we're seeing lots of small brands popping up that are doing that kind of thing, and I just know how hard they do work to try and get their product off the ground and into the supermarket. So that's interesting as well. Maybe some more media work would be great. I'd love to, I think that's another platform that is very useful. We want to see more dietitians in media because we want those credible voices, and it's great that we do see lots of dietitians in the media, but I think there's still there still could be more to try and drown out some of that other noise.
Yes, some actual facts that help people. And like when you're on the Today Show and you're talking with Carl, if you say stuff and Carl agrees, that would have other people agree too, right? Because they like Carl, and then you have been nice to Carl. So then they go, I might believe what she said,
Maybe some consulting work. Look, I don't know. I like variety. I like doing different things. I like to be mentally stimulated.
Yes.
Because, it's like I don't see myself as an influencer. I think, some young people will say that's what they want to do. They want to be an influencer.
That's right.
And get all the free product and the PR and,
that's right.
I think some of them are making a lot of money. That's never what I set out to do.
No.
Working with brands enables me to keep creating content, and if I'm honest, I prefer my own content.
Yes.
But working with brands enables me to continue doing that because it creates the time and helps you fund what you're doing. So I think the two things need to work together in conjunction.
Yes.
But I still want my page to feel organic and credible, and I want to have the freedom to be able to say what I want to say. I don't want to have to be a slave to any particular message or way of thinking. It's still, and I think that's why people like my content, is because it's unbiased.
Yeah, that's if I thought, okay, what's my favourite things? I totally trust you. Yes, we're friends, but I also trust your expertise. You share in a way that's very logical and factual. You literally put the data there so I can test it for myself if I need to, which of course I don't, but someone else might. And then, like you said, the non-judgy part and the useful part and the practical part. We have talked about how hard you've worked, and we've talked about the success of is it a page on Instagram? What's it called?
A page or an account. Yeah, people call it my page.
Okay, yeah. So we've talked about the success of the page and what it's taken to get to the success, and for you, the unexpected nature of it. But let's have a talk about the idea of what were some of the difficulties for you or still for you in really running this whole world by yourself, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's not all bed of roses. There's certainly some downsides to it as well. And I think one of the main ones has been that sort of imposter syndrome. I think I talked earlier about, as a dietitian, we are, type A personalities. We like to be right. So, and because my success has come about quite quickly, like when I look at the dietitians who are sort of well known, they've all, got PhDs and they've academia and they've been around for a long time. They're in the media. They're very well respected. And here's me, who's been around for a few years,
Yes.
and I've now got this, fairly big following on social media. And I'm like, well, do I really deserve that? What do other dietitians think of me? So I do worry a lot about what other people think. And, most of the time people, give me very positive feedback, but I still worry about it. I go, well, is there, a concern that I'm saying too much or that I'm not qualified to say certain things, that I should be quiet? I don't know. So there's a lot of that goes on in my mind, and I have to kind of try and block that out and just focus on the positive, positive feedback that I get.
Yes.
And I guess the other part would be the solo nature of the work. So anyone who's a content creator who's maybe working from home or working for themselves can relate to this. I've gone from working full-time in an office with teams and people and maybe managing people to working basically for myself. And so the days can be a bit lonely sometimes. You're like, well, I don't have a boss. I don't have, colleagues. I can't delegate to anybody. Everything's got to be done by me. And, sometimes you do just want to talk to people or bounce an idea off people. So you really do have to be, I guess, able to direct yourself, self-motivated, disciplined, but also trying to build a network. So I do try to talk to and chat to other, dietitians on social media and, try to make sure I'm still meeting up with people and keeping up with my socializing and my exercise and things like that, because otherwise you can fairly quickly descend into a little hole of never leaving the house and just, getting caught up in the world of content creation, which is not a real world at the end of the day. So yeah, look, it's not all perfect, but I think the opportunities that it has opened up to me already, and the fact that I'm able to kind of do what I want to do in a creative way is pretty cool. I think that I never would have thought this is what I would have been doing. Like I said, when I first started out, So yeah, and we did chat about some of these things at the beginning of the year when we caught up. You were sort of helping me, because I think I sort of put up my hand and said, Tam, you need some guidance here. I'm kind of at this crossroad in my career and I don't know what to do. I'm feeling very overwhelmed with all the things I could be doing and which way to go now. And we had a really useful chat where you started to help me to think of, look at things a bit differently.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's so normal and natural to, for one, having imposter syndrome or questioning. I think that's very human. And actually, I read a thing recently. The more accomplished you are, the more likely you will have imposter syndrome.
Really?
The more you actually are a sort of learned person, or the more intellectual, the more you will say. But the gap between here and the level of experience I could have, or the years I could have, you'll be much more prone to imposter syndrome to someone that's much less skilled. Isn't that interesting? But the other thing is, I love the joke about a very mediocre man will feel more confident than a very successful woman. So there's that in play as well. The other thing that you talked about was having connection and all the rest. And when we talked at the beginning of the year, I think the thing you tell me, right, but the thing I liked most about helping you was actually yes, I helped you, but really what it was me sort of putting a different mirror up and going, can we please have a look at how much you've achieved? And I gave you I won't give the details, but I gave you a job to do to list how many things you'd achieved. What timeline did I give you? 12 months prior, since you started your degree?
Yeah, maybe it was since I made the decision to change my career. Yeah. You gave me a deadline to do the project. I was like any project, I jump into it.
You really did. And you did it well ahead of schedule. And do you remember, I gave you a very high number and you said, actually, I could have done more. Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, I didn't think I could do that many initially, but then because you kind of opened out the plethora for things that counted, it was a bit easier. But it was actually a very useful exercise, because I do, as a person, tend to focus a lot on the negative. I look for the problem, what could go wrong, was very focused on the risk.
Yes.
And that applies to all parts of my life, like even, I'm cycling, I think about what could happen. Could I crash? Or, rather than thinking about the positive thing. And so it was really useful for you to, as I said, flip the mirror and get me to have a look at, well, hang on a second, let's take a look at what you've actually managed to achieve and all the positive things that have come out of this, and take the time to celebrate them, because I think I'm very guilty of not celebrating, the wins. And I think a good example of that would be, well, when I hit the 100K milestone, I kind of just went, I didn't want to celebrate it, because I was like, is that really cringe to do that? And actually, it was a really big achievement. Like everyone who's on social media, 100K is it's a pretty major milestone. And I was like, don't even know if I did a post. I was like, okay, that's happened.
I think we might have forced you to. I think there was a celebration amongst friends, and I said, hello, what's happening here? And I think we kind of said, could you just say a little something on the page about 100,000 followers? Like, if you think that is 2 times a football stadium, right? And this is what I think I do the best, is I see people, wonderful, amazing people, and go, hello, do you understand what you've done? You sent me back that list, and I think I wrote back to you, holy fuck. Like, I knew it was going to be a good list, but it was mind-blowing, and what a tragedy not to see it. But you don't have to feel too alone that you do that. We all do it as humans, one, because of our cave people brain. The other thing is, a fellow I love, he's just brought out a new book about belief, Sean Acor. Have I told you about his TED Talk? He talks about the happiness advantage.
No, don't think so. Tell me about it.
So the thing I want to tell you is, and everyone listening or watching, is he uses this line, and I've said it before in this podcast. He says, in the Western world, we push happiness over the cognitive horizon. Mm-hmm. So when I get here, I'll be this. When I get here, I'll be this. And because there's always something new to achieve, we just keep pushing it. So when you went 100, now 150. 150 is the real mark, right? And isn't that so sad? And you're not alone. We all do our version of it. But I did a recent episode on success, and I said, the Western world, man, like, fuck, like, no matter what you do, there's something else to aim for. There's someone else to compete with. There's some other thing to meet that you haven't met. And then, unlike this conversation, there's just so much shiny BS put out that, of course, everyone's confused, because everyone says the perfect thing. And when you don't, like I said to you, since I started this journey, I've been pretty honest, and oh my God, talk about lonely.
Yeah, it's true. When you're working on by yourself, you sometimes you have to kind of bring it back to, well, why am I doing this? Because it can be very easy to go off on a tangent or get a bit lost and get dejected when you have maybe a week where the phone doesn't ring or, things don't go to plan. So yeah, I think it's important to just continue to check in with yourself and, look back at what you're doing and be realistic about the milestones and the things that you're achieving. Because I can see how someone might look at my account and go, I'd like to be as successful as Jess. But then I'm looking at other people and go, well, why aren't I as successful as that? Everyone's always, their frame of reference is going to be different. So yeah, I think to your point, it's very important to take a moment and reflect and recognize and be proud of things that you've achieved.
Yeah, and of course, why am I so interested and passionate about helping people feel better and giving them the tools to see themselves well, the communication skills to, you were helping me look at this, like the clarity around what this podcast is. And, it's really been a moving feast since it started as I learn out loud. But, we talked about, for you or other clients, what do I do? And I basically, my passion is to help people love themselves and others better in how they communicate with themselves and others. So we'll use that. It's literally on the video, and I'll use that as an idea for how to target. You made me think of 2 things when you were sharing about how you keep going despite the doubt. It's the idea of the mission is bigger than your human self. So it's a very useful tool to have you feel more confident, not you, but one. What's the mission? Because the human will always wobble, but if the mission is clear, it doesn't wobble. And there's that poem which I love, where it says, I want to be a used up fireball that lands into my grave. This is terrible paraphrasing. Not a simpering clod of a human being full of ailments and concerns. Like as you go, I'm going to keep going because I want this outcome for people. Or as I keep going and I go, I know there's something I'm meant to contribute in the world. It's bigger than, for me, I look stupid or I haven't got enough followers or whatever else. And that thing about, what's the next mark? I do think in the society we're in, we're completely set up to fall for that. And I would say illogically or unscientifically, it's kind of in the ether of the Western world. What's next? And because there's not an authenticity in what people say and there's not a safety to be real, people don't do it. So then no one's doing it. So then everyone goes, well, everyone else must be perfect. And then you have a conversation with an actual human being. Like we could plonk Hugh Jackman between us. And if we had a real conversation, he'd be fucked up as much as us or more. But because he's well known, everyone's like,
life must be perfect. And
life must be perfect.
Got it together. Yeah.
He's got it together, man.
I don't think anyone really has it together, do
they? No one has it together. And the more we can just be gentle with that and real about it. And I just keep trying to be real, but honestly, 51% brave, 49% scared. I get why you said, this can be a slog, because I think the same. I go, what the F am I doing, And then you will get this more than me, but I'll get the person right when I'm going to give it away and I get the message, thanks, Tam, that made all the difference to me today.
Exactly. Because one of the things I found really helpful about talking to you was that you reframed the thinking and you really helped me to reflect on some of the things that might be holding me back. And in my case, it's potentially my negative outlook or my cynical perspective on things at times. And if I can break that down, it will help me to be more successful. So I'm very grateful for what you helped me with.
You're very welcome.
Yes.
And you know what has been the biggest lesson for me on that thing you just said? That part of you, there is what it is for all of us. And I found this such a hard lesson. It's on my latest straight to camera piece, What You Resist Persists. And then the next one, All Parts Are Welcome. That one, which isn't out yet, I think it's out next week, it talks about that part of you that is more cynical or negative or structural, or whatever it is. The hardest thing I've had to learn is, instead of rejecting that, to love it but not let it run the show. And when there's a part of you that you don't think's good, so I've got my bits, you've got your bits, everyone has different versions, some of them match, some don't. You often marry the person with the perfect terrible match. You go, okay, so now I've got that, how can I not fight it but love it? And that's so hard, because you go, but that's the thing causing me pain. Looked at it from a different angle, your cynicism or whatever else you'd say is the thing that's had you work harder, be clearer, make better or more logical decisions. So it's had a very important role. It's just having it in the right perspective.
Yeah.
Not running the show.
The right percentage, yeah.
Like they say, you can sit in the back seat, like with anxiety.
Yes.
I'm driving. You're welcome. I love you. I know you mean well.
You can make your comments, but
Make your comments. I've got my soundproof headphones on, but I am listening. Really, I'll take one off, but I'm driving today. I'll check if there's more you want to say after I say this, but I think what felt to me like a good end point was when you said, I never wanted to be an influencer. So my son's only 11. I'm going to own $5 if I talk. Let's talk about someone else who's very young and I might know. They will talk, their generation will talk about being an influencer, and it's actually got nothing to do with the point of what you're doing. It's got nothing to do really with usefulness. It's about having a platform, prestige, and more than anything, money. So when they talk about being an influencer, they're often talking about producing nonsense that just other people of their generation find fun. Like if you look at what's massively viral, often there's nothing, it's not coming close to useful. It's just caught the attention of a particular group of people, right? So I get that all you've done is you've gone, I want to put out a message. What's the best, most efficient way I can do it now? The success has surprised you. It's just that your intention to do good work created an outcome. And I love that. I love that that's what created the outcome. And then it'll just be, yeah, what's next? But I think for you as a person, or any of us that have a level of ambition or want to make a difference in the world, it is very useful to go, what have I already achieved? What difference have I already made? And with that many followers, Jess, like, you are already making an enormous difference. If each follower has a family and they're making decisions based on what you've shared, and they've upped their red capsicum use or added broccoli to their lentil, or gone, I'm going to eat that Easter egg because Jess said I could and I'm not going to pretend. Yeah, it's wonderful. Like, really well done. You know how proud I am of you, but really, like, congratulations. Like, you've done so good.
And, you know, the thing that makes it, and this is going to sound really cheesy, but one of the things that makes it worthwhile is the messages I get from people. So, you know, it takes 2 seconds to, you know, to not write a comment or send me a little DM, and I do read all of them, and people will send me a message going, I love your content so much. You've really helped me to make better choices. I use it all the time, and just little things like that. That's what keeps me going.
Oh, yeah.
Because you feel like, you know, like, as I said at the beginning, you know, one of the reasons why anyone enters health, you know, because it can be a bit of a slog. I mean, working in the health space is because we want to help people. And when you find out that what you're doing is genuinely helping people, it's very rewarding.
So satisfying.
Yeah, it's satisfying. It's the same as, you know, the equivalent would be if your patient came back to see you and they told you they had got better or, you know, achieved their health goal or whatever it is. You kind of getting that, you know, in your DMs essentially.
Yeah, you really are. And the thing is that if we look at how unusual it will be for people to put their thanks out loud, for every DM you're getting, for your size of page, there is probably 10 to 20,000 people who could have written that DM. So you get the satisfaction of, so there's a line I love. It's from an old poem that was accredited to Emerson, but it was actually a woman that wrote it in the early 19th century. If one life has breathed easier because you have lived, that is to have succeeded. And I think, okay, you've got 171,000 lives. There's big differences happening, right?
Yeah, look, hopefully. I mean, and that's the end of the day. If I can help, you know, even a small number of people make better choices and make healthy eating feel easier and less confusing, then, you know, that's kind of, well, that's all I can ask for, right? That was the whole reason I started the page. And it seems to be working. So, yeah, I'll just keep going, keep doing that.
Yeah, you've done it. Well done. Well done. Let's
High
see
five.
What's next. High five.
Yeah. High five, yeah.
Yeah, very proud. I was so happy to talk to you. What a treat. We're now going to go out and celebrate your birthday a couple of days early, which will be very nice. I don't even know what time it is. And thank you for having me here in your beautiful apartment. It's lovely. And yeah, I'm very excited to see what's next for Jess.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Tam. It's been a delight to chat to you. And, you know, I love listening to your podcast. And hopefully anyone else who's listening to this today, check out her episodes because they're very helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Tam.
Thank you.